The United Nations estimates more than 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country since the start of the Russian invasion. But behind each number is a story. These are photos taken by Olena Prokopenko. She's a Ukrainian foreign policy analyst and co-chair of the Transatlantic Task Force on Ukraine, which works to strengthen international support for Ukraine's national security. This weekend, she arrived in Poland after spending 1 week in bomb shelters in Kyiv. Overhead, she could hear Russian warcraft pummel the city that she called home. After 15 hours of crossing the Polish border on foot in the cold, she finally made it to a safe place. After this harrowing journey, I was able to speak with Olena. Take a listen. Olena, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. Can I start by asking, how are you feeling right now? What have the past 10 days been like for you? What have you had to do to stay safe?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, of course, I'm very anxious, not just for my family and my personal future, but for the future of Ukraine. And we have seen how strong a response Ukrainian army and civilians have been giving to the Russian invasion in the past 11 days. But of course, the situation remains very tense, very unpredictable, and Ukraine is still under full-fledged invasion from a number of directions. And we don't know what the future holds, and we really need more Western support for Ukraine to win. The past 10 days have been, really indescribable for me and my family. We spent quite some time in bomb shelters and sleeping on the floor, metro stations and basements. It was something we would have never expected to have happened to us, just like millions of Ukrainians across the country. After one of the residential buildings in downtown Kyiv was shelled by the Russian forces, we decided to relocate to Kyiv suburbs, hoping that it would be safer for us there. But of course, there are no. And just shortly after, we found ourselves 4 miles from the front lines. We heard aircrafts, warcrafts flying right over our house, which was a hell of an alarm clock in the morning. And there were obvious shortages of food in the stores, and complete uncertainty as to whether we would be able to remain alive the day after. So we decided to leave Ukraine.
Olena, you are a civil society activist. You are a foreign policy analyst. You've worked on transatlantic relations prior to this invasion. What does your country, what does Ukraine need from its allies in the West right now to fend off this Russian assault, or is it too late?
Well, I must add, despite unprecedented unity and severity of the Western response of Western sanctions, they are still too weak and too slow to ward off, to deter Russian aggression. These sanctions would have been proportional and adequate for 2014, when Russia invaded a part of Ukraine in Donbass, when it annexed the Crimea. But in the midst of this full-fledged invasion in the center of Europe, the response should be significantly stronger and faster. Today, the world is astonished by incredible courage of the Ukrainian army and our civilian defense and citizens who are literally stopping Russian troops and Russian tanks with their bare hands. Yes. But now it's important not to dwell on this admiration alone and be very pragmatic and practical about helping Ukraine through on the level of states, on the level of NGOs, on the level of diaspora organizations and individual citizens. And I'd like to reiterate that we urgently need a no-fly zone over Ukraine introduced by the West in order to prevent further civilian losses, which already are insurmountable. We need enhanced military assistance to Ukraine, including modern lethal weapons and equipment. We need excluding Russia from all international organizations and stopping, cutting off diplomatic ties with Russia. Yes. Russia should be disconnected from SWIFT. Trade embargo has to be enforced. These are the critical steps that we need right now. And we see that our enemy does not understand or speak the language of diplomacy. The only language it understands is the language of force. Therefore, we do ask the West to equip Ukraine to win, to equip it with modern weapons, and to strengthen sanctions against Russia, to isolate it. I think it's not too late, but we need to act really fast in order to stop this tragedy in the middle of Europe.
Olena Prokopenko, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today. I cannot imagine what you must have been through in recent days. So appreciate you coming on, and please do stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Still to